Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at a one-person ultralight backpacking tent known as the Lanshan 1 Pro from 3FUL Gear. So let's get right into it. Alright, so let's get things started by unpacking the stuff sack and just laying everything out on the table so you guys can see what comes with the tent. Now, first off, the tent is very compact when it is cinched down in the stuff sack. I want to say that's about 8 inches by about 5 inches in diameter. Very small. There are 2 buckles on the side, as this is a roll top stuff sack, making this extremely useful around camp when it's empty. You can put clothes in it, turn it into a pillow. You can put your food in it, pull it up in a tree if you're in bear country. Many uses for the stuff sack, so just unroll it. And the stuff sack looks to be about 18 inches long, so it is a fairly long stuff sack if you do want to use it for other uses. So right at the top we do have the ground sheet, so the tent is provided with the ground sheet, which is very useful. We then have a bag full of goodies. This is the tent poles, a pole repair kit, and a syringe. We'll talk more about that in a little bit, but there is a little bag there with tent pegs. And then reaching inside, we have the one-piece body and inner tent all in one with all the guy lines fixed to it. Very nice tent. So let's talk about this repair bag. We do have all the tent pegs in here. It does come with, I'm just going to dump it out here so you guys can see. Now, things are very dirty. I have been using this tent quite often, so all these pegs are very dirty. They do have these little tiny star-shaped pegs. These are probably about 4.5 inches long, and they do have some yellow reflective guy-out material on the ends, making this very visible. There are 4 flutes to this tent peg. Very nice and very small, sleek design with these pegs. I actually enjoy these quite a bit. They're not very good in soft soil though, because you would want a longer peg, but in typical grass conditions or hard packed ground, these are excellent pegs. Very small. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 pegs in total. We then have some material here, and like I said, some of the stuff is a little bit dirty. I have been using this tent quite often. So this looks to be like some patch material, reinforcements for in the corner. So it does have some fabric there. Tuck that back down inside. And we have this syringe. Now, there is no liquid or any kind of sealant included with the kit other than this little tiny syringe, which means the tent is not water sealed. I'm going to talk about that a little later on in the video, but it does include a syringe for your own use for water sealing it. And that is it for that bag. In this bag we do have the footprint, which is very important in protecting the bottom of your tent, also in helping protect your sleeping pad inside of the tent. So pretty standard, very basic is what I want to say. It's just a ground sheet, very simple. We will show that when we set the tent up. And then, like I said, we do have the tent body. Now, there is one thing missing with this tent, and it's not missing from the manufacturer. It's just it does not come with a pole. So for today's video, I am going to be using a trekking pole to set this tent up. As it is an ultralight tent, you will require an additional pole to set it up. Most hikers carry trekking poles. I don't often, but when I'm using shelters that require a trekking pole, I will gladly bring one. So we do have an additional trekking pole to set the tent up. Let's cover some of the specs. Okay guys, so moving into the specs portion of the video, I do have the listing pulled up on my phone as usual. This is the Lanshan 1 Pro from 3FUL Gear. It is coming in Canadian. It looks like current pricing is between $215 and $263 Canadian. Now, there are 2 versions available. There is a 4-season version, which the mesh inner would have a solid panel, and then there's a 3-season version, which is what I have, so the inside is all mesh to promote a lot of air circulation and cooling. This is a 3 to 4 season tent. It measures 270 centimeters long and 90 centimeters wide for the sleeping area, and then there is a little bit of additional room in the front vestibule as well as the rear vestibule. It is made of a 20D sill nylon, and coming down it has a 2,000 millimeter waterproof rating. Now keep in mind, it is not water sealed. There are no seam taping in this tent. We will cover that a little later on in the video. It is nylon, Lanshan 1 Pro, like I said, the measurements, and we'll talk more about some of the other specs. I just want to touch on some of the really basic things right now. The tent body is 690 grams. Now everything, minus the pole of course, so the ground sheet, the pegs, and the tent comes in at 860 grams. So for you people that are a little weight conscious about your gear, that will hopefully help you. And it is available in a white or a green. My model is the green. And the vestibule area, so there is a little bit more information here. The total width of the tent is 110 centimeters wide. And of course, like I mentioned, 90 of that is sleeping area, and then the additional in the back and the additional in the front. 125 centimeters tall. Keep that in mind because the recommended height for the trekking pole is 120 centimeters for setting it up, as every tent with a trekking pole typically has a recommended height to have a proper pitch. So I hope that helps you guys with some of the specs. If you're looking for more, dive into their listing. I currently pulled this listing up on AliExpress, and it seems to have a lot of information there. So let's get the tent set up. Alright guys, so the setup of this tent is fairly basic. You just want to make sure you follow the proper steps, otherwise it may come toppling down, as it is a non-freestanding tent. So over here I do have all the tent pegs. I've got the ground sheet, which I'm going to set up first, and then I have my trekking pole here. Now I do have this set to 120 centimeters. We may need to adjust or decrease the length in that a little later on. And then I've got the tent body. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the tent up going this way with the door facing towards that way. And basically, take your ground sheet and open it up and orientate it the way you like it. So we're going to open it up like that. I'm going to put 4 pegs in each corner nice and loosely, and then fan out the tent body on top, and then start guying out all the guy out points. And then I'm going to add the center pole or the trekking pole into the front door, get that all set, and get all the guy lines nice and taut. Okay, so now that we've got the tent set up, I'll give you guys a look at the back side, and then we'll move over to the other side in just a moment. I just want to point out that there are reinforcements on all the guy out points, which is very nice, durable material. All these cords are reflective, and the adjusters are actually glow in the dark, and these things do light up at nighttime quite bright, so you're not going to trip on any guy lines. All the guy out points on the bottom do have built-in adjusters, so you can tension the cord simply by drawing it in one pull, and that tightens up the tent nice and snug. Moving over here, you can see that there are more reinforcements, and the reinforcements are also down on the bottom. So every point that has pull on it, including the top, has a reinforced panel, making this very strong. Over here you can see a side profile of the tent, so that is still the rear. The front door is going this way. And you can see that it is kind of similar to a teepee style tent. There is ample enough room in here for your gear on the back side or the front side. Do a little bit of cooking inside of the vestibule, and then you've got this whole area here for sleeping. And it's nice to even sit up inside of it, as the peak is a little bit tall to allow you to do so. But all in all, this is kind of a look on the outside. Let's move over to the front view and get the door unzipped and have a look at the actual living space inside. All right, making our way over to the front, you'll notice first off that there is a nice vent up here. It is reinforced internally. It does have some foam, so this does stay rigid. And you can angle this up or down depending on the angle of your guy out line. Of course, there are adjusters on this as well. And this is kind of your main guy line that's really going to hold the tent up. So after you put the trekking pole in, you then want to pull this. So if I loosen this off, the tent won't fall because the ground peg is in the door, but it wants to go back if that peg comes out. So this is kind of the last thing you want to set up. And this is what gives your tent structure, either the door pegged out or this cord. I currently have all the guy lines set up, so this is in its fullest form set up, and in its strongest form too. So we'll tighten that back up. Right here we do have the door. We have a nice generous rain flap. Internally there is a reinforced material. I can see it, there's kind of little dots through it. I'm not sure what it is, but it is definitely rigid, and that creates a nice non-snag zip cover, so it's not actually going to get snagged when you're zipping it up and down. So this is actually a very nice addition. There is a loop at the top of the tent with some reflective material as well, so if you do wish to hang this from a tripod or perhaps a tree and lose the trekking pole, you can even set it up that way. There are 2 Velcro tabs, one at the bottom, one in the center. So if you do want to shut your door and keep it Velcroed shut, you can do so. And that's basically it. So let's open the tent and have a look at it. After undoing your door panel, there are loops to guide both of them out, little toggles and loops. These are elastic, so they actually do stretch, making it very easy to get that toggle in there. It's not a fixed loop, so you can actually stretch it, tuck the toggle in, and be done with it that way. So here's our first look at the interior of the tent. All of this is mesh. With the 4-season version, this would all be a kind of taffeta material to block a lot of the wind and some blowing snow if you are out in the wintertime. But this being the 3-season version, it's all nicely bug netted. So let's open up this door panel as well. And I can do that because remember, I have this central guy outline right here holding the tent up. If that was not there, the tent would now fall down. So it's very important to have that set up. Come off to the side, open up the second door, and toggle it the same way as I did the first door. And now you can see the whole front porch area, making this quite a roomy tent realistically. This trekking pole does need to be pushed back a little bit, more vertical. We've got the ground sheet underneath. Now I actually installed the ground sheet backwards. This point is supposed to go in the back, as this is straight and the back actually comes to a point. However, it doesn't matter. It actually functions the same way. The whole ground cover is covered very nicely. So that is a side note. If you do set that up backwards, it does still work, no problem. These zippers are very, very nicely tagged with some 3FUL gear kind of soft tags so they don't jingle. You can unzip very easily and zip up very easily. Kneeling here underneath the peak, you can see that it is quite high. So if you are kneeling inside of the tent, you will have a little bit of headroom. If you're trying to get a sweater on or do up a jacket before you come outside, you could do so from inside of the tent and then make your way outside of the tent. Okay, so here I have one mesh panel opened, unzipped. This is the only door of the tent. It does not extend to the other side. It's only on the right side of your trekking pole. And it does toggle back into the same toggle as the door does. Now, the bottom of this tent is a bathtub floor construction, meaning there is actually a 3-dimensional floor in all the corners, all of the sides. It's hard to tell right now because I am on some puffy grass, so it is lifting up the tent in some areas. But it does have a bathtub floor. There is one seam in the floor. It's directly in the center. That is seam taped, and there are some really nice stitching and nice reinforcement panels inside of here. So it is quite a strong tent, I will say that. However, the upper tent is not seam sealed. It will leak rain, as I mentioned before. Even on the little round circles, those black circles on the outside, the reinforcement tabs for the guy lines, those are not seam sealed, as well as all of the seams. So you are going to have to spend quite a bit of time on your own seam sealing this tent. And we'll talk more about that when I cover my final thoughts on the tent. But inside, it is very nice. It does have a 3D baffled or constructed floor with a bathtub, and at the top of that bathtub to the bottom of the fly sheet material there is about 3 to 4 inches of mesh all the way around the tent, so that promotes a lot of circulation and fresh air coming in through the bottom of the tent. And then there is a vent at the top, as I've already mentioned, to help with that circulation of air. There is a load of room in here, and the back of the tent is not shaped straight, so the front is straight. The back actually comes to a little bit of a point, which creates a little bit of area for a backpack or shoes or whatever you want to push towards the back side of the tent, giving you quite a bit of room. There is one mesh pocket right up towards the head end up here, so if you do want to store car keys or a little flashlight or whatever inside, you can do so. At the top there is a little loop with a little plastic hook. You can hang a headlamp or lantern up top as well. And all in all, it's a pretty basic tent on the inside. I'll give you guys a quick look at the inside, and you guys will be able to see that little strip of mesh and the bathtub floor area that I'm talking about. And then I think we'll move over to the final thoughts and back to the table and talk a little bit more about the tent and what I think about it. So from this angle, looking inside of the tent, you can see in the far back corner that 3D bathtub floor effect with the mesh panel, so that does go all the way around the tent. And then right up in the center, you can see the main pocket inside for a light flashlight or keys or whatever you find that useful for. And then basically the inside of the tent is very, very basic. Just enough room to throw a sleeping pad inside of, a sleeping bag, and a couple pieces of gear and fall asleep inside of. It's not a living shelter, it's more of a sleeping shelter. Alright guys, so now that you've seen the tent, you've seen some of the features, all the adjusters on the bottom, the nice reinforced guy outs, the mesh, the top cap, everything in the tent is very nice and it is lightweight. What are my final thoughts though? So, The tent not being water sealed. It does come with a syringe, but there is no sealant, so you basically have to source your own water sealant and then pipe it onto the tent, adding more weight and frustration. And then you have the idea of, did I get every spot? Is it going to be water sealed? So for 3FUL, I think that they could take the word pro out of the title. I think it's ridiculous. I believe the only reason why the pro word is in the title is because it is so lightweight, coming in at 690 grams for your basic tent setup, but it's not water sealed. So if the tent's not water sealed, it basically is useless. Now, how much added weight would be added to the tent to put seam taping in there? I don't know. I believe it would push it above 690 grams. So I'm not too sure why the pro is in the title. Do professionals get wet? Do amateurs stay dry? I have no idea. I think it's a little bit of a silly marketing. So if they would just change it to Lanshan 1, I believe it would be a little bit smarter of a title at least. Just there's no water sealant on the tent. So for having a lightweight backpacking tent, it has got to be waterproof. So that is the #1 issue with this tent. Just add some seam tape, 3FUL. It is so easy. Seam tape it, done. You guys got a really nice tent. All in all, the tent with the reinforcement and the construction of it, everything is stitched really well. Even here on the bag, the stitching is extremely well. The fabric is really nice and lightweight and nice and silky smooth, so it packs away inside of the bag very nice. I do actually like the roll style bag over a zip style bag, again saving on weight, but you can use this bag for so many uses. If you only have a small item, you roll it all the way down and now that bag fits that item. If you have a large item, it still fits inside. And what that means is the tent can actually pack in here really easily because the bag is oversized, and then you simply roll it down to the desired size and then snap it into the toggles and off you go, making pack up extremely fast and extremely easy. The tent does offer adequate ventilation, however there is going to be a bit of condensation where there is not a ton of circulation of air. Having the door open in the evening if it's not raining is a very good idea. There is a one-way zipper, so you cannot unzip it from the top. It only unzips from the bottom. But having that Velcro placed on that little rain flap does prevent the door from unzipping any farther. So if you do want to leave it unzipped a little bit and then use that toggle rope to kind of toggle it out and hold it open on good nights with no rain or no snow if you're in the wintertime, it can actually work really well. And I'm looking at the tent right now off to the side. It is very, very nice. I will say that. I enjoy it a lot. It is very lightweight, very fast to set up. There's a lot of customizability inside of the tent and outside of the tent as far as adjusting the tent. So it does recommend 120 centimeters, but if you set your trekking pole to 125 or even 115, the tent can still set up with all of those adjusters on the guy out points just to give it a nice tight pitch. And that thing is rock solid when the door zips shut and it's pitched. It is very, very strong. Having the design of a teepee style shelter promotes a lot of wind going up and over it and around the tent rather than slamming into a solid wall. I don't find in high winds the tent pushes in with those strategically placed side guy outs. It is very, very usable. So I really do enjoy the tent. I give it 2 thumbs up other than the seam sealing. It has to be seam sealed. So I think if 3FUL gear is listening, lose this silly contraption, lose that and just go with the seam taping, the hot press seam seal. Seam tape the tent and it will be a huge upgrade to this tent and usability factor, because looking at the tent right now, I really enjoy the color, I enjoy the shape, I enjoy the size, I enjoy the weight, the packability is excellent other than the seam sealing. It has to be seam sealed. So that is my final thoughts on the 3FUL Lanshan 1 Pro. Lose that Pro because it's not very professional if it leaks. So other than that, I really enjoy the tent. Drop down in the comment section what you guys think, and I'll definitely be in the comment section. And if you guys have any questions, also drop them down there and I'll be sure to check them out as well. Thank you very much for watching. Peace out, guys, and I'll see you in the next video.